My name's Connie Gabe, and I welcome you to the Project Green's third and final forum for 2022. Thanks to Beth and the folks from at Bond, the folks that are here at the library to help us with all this setup and hosting the library. So this is great, and the program can be viewed on the on the library's YouTube channel, and will be available about a week after this event. It'll be on their YouTube channel. And for 53 years, Project Green has devoted significant funds and volunteer hours in helping beautify Iowa City for the Iowa City's public landscapes. Your financial contributions enable us to continue this work and are greatly appreciated. Supporters can donate online at the Project Green website, the Community Foundation of Johnson County, or through the City of Iowa City. With this concluding our forums for 2022, it means I'll be looking for speakers and subjects for 2023. So if today or sometime down the line you know of a topic and a speaker that you think would be good for this forum, I'd love to hear from you. So you can contact any of us or just put it on the Project Green website or whatever. So that'd be great. Always looking for good speakers and topics. We're planning to sponsor Open Gardens Weekend again this summer. We did it in 2021 after 1 year hiatus. Last summer we had 30 gardens and an estimated 600 visitors and no admission charge, thanks to the homeowners, of course, and the 10 generous business sponsors that we had helping us. Please consider offering up your own garden or nominating other gardens. Excuse me. The garden tour is scheduled for July 9th and 10th. We'll have updates on the weekend plans on our website in the coming months, and there's a sheet of paper there with the information too at the back and the yellow half sheet back there. And beginning the first Monday of May, which is the 2nd of May this year, only 6 weeks from now, if you can imagine, with the snow on the ground. And most Mondays until October, a group of Project Green volunteers gather at the Ashton House on Park Road, where we work on the gardens there and establish gardens and maintain gardens. We work from 9 to 11, as I said, most Mondays. And if you get on the list, our leader, Diane, always sends out a note if it's called off for weather and such, but typically we're there every Monday. I think it's a great place to socialize with other gardeners and get tips and trade problems and figure out solutions. So it's really a fun group to be with. And then you can go through and see the fruits of your labor afterwards. And you get all sorts of compliments from the many people who use the trails down there now, especially bikers, seem to really like to go through that area. So, and we're going to keep improving it. So it looks different every couple weeks for sure. Let's see. So today, talking about our speaker, Andy will present for 45 minutes to an hour. We'll take a break for 15 minutes or so for coffee, and we decided it was still too soon for treats, so hopefully in 2023 we can bring back the bars and the cookies. We'll all enjoy that.
I would have known that before I said yes.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
Thanks a lot.
I should have baked a batch just to send home with you. Well, you have to come again next year then.
Oh, well, we'll see how how
this
it
one goes.
Yeah.
Okay. During the break, what I'd like you to do, as we've done in the last couple of years, is if you have questions that occur to you during Andy's presentation, if you would write them down on that clipboard. That way we can gather them together, and I can ask Andy, and it'll all go over the recording. So that's the way we'd like to run that. And I think we're really in for a treat today with our speaker and our topic. Andy Dahl is the University of Iowa Urban Forestry Supervisor and Campus Arborist. Today he'll give us a visual tour and commentary on some of the most notable of the 800 trees on campus. Probably species of 800 trees?
8,000.
8,000. I left a zero out. I got going 800. That's not very many.
Boy, he doesn't do much.
No, gosh, I could do 800 trees.
Yeah, oh, really? You're hired.
No, I don't think I could. I kill more than I keep. Anyway, 8,000. So much for that one. I first became aware of Andy when University Publication came out, I think last year, and you were featured in one of the articles about the literary walk, and that caught my attention, where trees are linked to literary people that have been here at the Writers Workshop and such. So I hope maybe you could make mention of some of that when you're speaking.
There.
Yeah, okay. There are other notable gardens featuring conifers and oaks and ginkgoes, and those are all included in the U of I urban forest. Andy's been at the campus, has been the campus arborist for the U of I for 22 years. During Andy's tenure, the university has achieved Tree Campus USA designation and became an accredited arboretum. He received the Urban Forestry Professional of the Year internationally and in Iowa, and similar recognition in the Midwest chapter of the International Society of Arboriculture. Andy is a passionate tree guy, and he enjoys dragging his family, his words, dragging his family to other arboretums when he's not working on campus. And I think we've directed all of you to submit for door prizes, because one of them will be an oak sapling.
Mm-hmm. That's a pretty special one.
A very special one that Andy will describe to you during the talk. So with that, please help me welcome Andy Dahl.
Thank you. Well, this is a treat. The planning wasn't that good, though, because the Hawkeyes are playing. Now, Connie doesn't want to hear any updates, but if someone can flash me like that'd be great. It's an honor to come speak to you today with the Project Green, the second Sunday Garden Forum. I remember 25, 30 years ago coming to these. I have a bit of a history with Project Green. Nancy Seiberling is one of the founders of it. We used to go on road trips to nurseries, and boy, if that wasn't fun. That was a good time. She was a special lady, and the projects that they've accomplished over the years, the plant sales, the medians, it's just been a great thing for the community. So thank you for coming today. You're going to get the tour of University Trees. So I guess introductions should be made first. We have a four-man crew. So Al Allgood, he's an Iowa City boy. He's been working with me for this is his 20th year now. He's a certified arborist. Oh, we heard enough about that guy. The new kid on the crew, he's only been with us since September. His name's Wayne Norman, so he's fitting in very well. And then we have Grant Raitt, who has about 30 years of experience, primarily with county conservation near Chicago, and they had thousands of acres. So his forte is wildlands, prairies. He's really good at taking down trees too. We also, as if our workload wasn't enough, we also get to take care of the prairies and the woodlands too. So there's never a dull moment. So these guys, we get through a lot of work, and it's a testament. All that stuff she was saying about the campus is because of these guys. So the university campus. We're home to 8,000 trees in maintained areas that we mow around, 330 species of trees. I'm big into diversity. I'll talk a little bit about that later. To give you an idea, I did some little research. University of North Carolina has 180 species of trees, and they're in Zone 7, I believe. So we have a lot of trees on campus, a lot of different ones. So I urge you to get out and look at them. Part of my philosophy, I guess, is even though we're not a land grant institution like Iowa State, do we have Iowa State fans here, by the way? Can we get the door, please? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you? Well, they do wonderful things, and we They do. We rib each other good-naturedly about this. We don't have biology or horticulture classes to speak of anymore. So, but I still feel it's our duty to, even with the landscape, educate folks and show what can be done. So, going back to Iowa State one more time. I'm sorry. Thank you. If there was a Cyhawk series, you know how the basketball and football team, they have the Cyhawk trophy. We would have won it for the trees because we were the first college or university to achieve the tree campus designation in Iowa, so 2009. So thank you. Applause is welcomed. So hey, thank you. So to be a Tree Campus USA, you have to, there we are getting our award from the State Urban Forester. We have to have a tree campus, a committee. So we meet occasionally, talk about tree issues. We have a campus tree care plan. That's everything from species to planting standards to tree protection zones, during construction. We have to spend a certain amount per student, which we do, and then some. We have an Arbor Day observance. So we usually plant a tree somewhere on campus with a group of students. And then service learning projects is what it's turned into. I used to really like Earth Month, April. It's my contention every month should be Earth Month, but wow, there's a lot of projects. I mean, I'm happy, but it's like, wow, we need to clone myself to get some of these going. So we'll meet with environmental classes and plant trees, show them the proper way to plant trees. We have a lot of athletic groups. There's a day of caring that we get an athletic team. This is the homecoming committee, planting a tree. I can't go down the mental list of all the different groups that have helped plant trees. And it's a lot of fun. People, they have a sense of ownership when they plant these trees, for the greater good of the community. And then sometimes we get to talk to future college students. Well, to me, college students, each year that goes by, they get younger and younger as I age. Wow, they are getting younger. And then last year, this has been a goal of mine. We didn't need an accreditation. I wanted to make it an arboretum, but then I found out about this program through the Morton Arboretum in Chicago, ArbNet, and we're checking all the boxes. We're doing everything that's needed to become an accredited arboretum. I was like, well, the paperwork's on my desk for 2 years. I finally got it done, and there's 457 of these globally, and we are a level 2, so there's 143 in the world. Iowa, I believe the Iowa Arboretum and Madrid and Brenton Arboretum near Des Moines are the only other level 2. So it's a feather in our cap. I would like to, level 3 would be awesome. I may try that again in 5 years. Level 4 would be great because then you get to go and travel and collecting in different countries, but I don't think they'll support me in that. So some of the day-to-day stuff. Normal tree work, I guess. We prune trees for clearance around buildings, sidewalks, streets. There's Danforth Chapel. As a aside, my wife and I got married at Danforth in 2004, and this tree we planted at the ceremony. So everyone threw a shovel full of dirt in, and it's been fun watching it grow. We go there on our anniversary and get the picture taken. It started out just the two of us, and then we have one baldy, and then two baldies, and now we have a 16 and 14-year-old daughters, and they're just. This is so boring. This is so dumb, But like any marriage, the flood came in 2008, and the water came up right around that, and I was like, oh gosh, it's a European beach, a variety called Rohan, and they do not like wet feet. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, am I gonna have to call the divorce lawyer? But just. Things get rough sometimes, but you pull through, and now it's a big tree. It's starting to fruit, it's starting to seed, so I hope to collect some of those seeds and start them. I digress a lot. I see stuff and I just start rambling. We'll prune trees for shape and structure. We had a climber, Wayne replaced him and is going to learn how to climb. Our previous climber was really good, so he'd be the monkey up in the trees. I'm too old for that anymore. But we do have a bucket truck, and we have the chipper truck, all the big fancy equipment. It makes life a lot easier. Sometimes we have to prune for construction. Sometimes they're eagerly awaiting for us to prune. This is one of those like 8 a.m. phone calls. Hey, you need to get up here and do that. Okay, here we go. And pruning young trees. This is our field nursery. This is, Connie asked me, or someone asked me earlier, how many trees we lost in the derecho. And we lost, between the two campuses, probably right around 100. But it's my contention that 3/4 of those would still be standing if they had had proper pruning when they were young. So I cannot stress that enough. Pruning trees when they're young, for those double leaders. You know, you go to a nursery and you pick out this tree and it's nice and full, kind of looks like a lollipop. That is probably the worst tree ever because you have all these competing leaders. You want to look for the one that's kind of got the tall, skinny leader because that's a nice straight tree that doesn't have all these codominant leaders that are going to lead to breakage in derechos or just even normal weather. So that's one thing I really, once we get through this emerald ash borer business, is to really concentrate on pruning young trees so someone doesn't cuss me like I cussed the previous arborist that was there from 1960 to 1990, and I don't know that he ever pruned any young trees anyway. So, unfortunately, we also remove trees. Historical averages were about 150 trees a year. I heard a gasp. Get ready, you want to do a double gasp? Because the last 3 years it's been over 330 because of the ash trees. So, yeah. This was a big hackberry outside Calvin Hall. When you go up Jefferson Street, it was on the left. And one thing I like about trees is the history, they've been around multiple generations. I really like that. It pains me to take these sort of things down. This one had a large split in it over a very busy sidewalk and street, so it had to come down, unfortunately. And it's a hackberry. I'm not a big hackberry fan, but I won't get into that right now. This is the same tree in 1910. So that's kind of neat that it was there almost 100 years. So does anyone know the history of this building? For those of you that don't, they moved this building a block away and down the hill. It's a engineering marvel. They still held classes in it. It was where McBride Hall is, where the museum is, Natural History Museum. So here's the poor guys that got to move it. I mean, that cribbing, and there's another picture with mules. And when you stand at the bottom and look at that building, it's just amazing to me that they were able to move that. Here's another large tree we had to remove. It was a white pine that had been struck by lightning behind West Lawn. And sometimes the trees are too big. We don't have a crane anymore, so we work in conjunction with a contractor, in this case, Randy Knoll. This was the big pin oak. No one's throwing tomatoes at me. This is the big pin oak outside the field house. I got so many calls about this. We nursed this thing along. We had at least 2 prunes in the last 6 years, and it was just dying back so bad. It had dropped 3 large limbs in the space of a month and a half, and we made the decision to remove it. I got a very angry phone call from a fella, and I think a lot of people would get mad. I like to try and educate them. How could you take down that 200-year-old pin oak? Well, I explained, showed him the pictures. That wasn't quite enough, but then I had to explain that it wasn't a 200-year-old tree. I went back in the photos, and it was planted somewhere between the fall of 1929 and the spring of 1930. So it's amazing how fast these things can grow. That log right there, 36,000 pounds. I mean, when the log was on the ground, it was as tall as me when I was laying on its side. That was a big tree. I'm glad Randy was there.
Oak wilt disease or what?
No, it had a bit of chlorosis, which is a iron deficiency, basically. But it had just, with all the construction over the years, the foot traffic, the change in the walk patterns, the salt, everything, it just was time. It was just declining back at such a rate.
Was that log something you could have cut into lumber, or was it going to be good, or did it have to be burned?
The question was, were we able to use that for anything, a higher purpose? I'll get into that just a little bit more. In this case, no. I shopped it around, and I think when people saw it, they, thanks, no. It was just so big. Yeah, I'll come back to that. Thank you. Here's another tree that was on the Penncrest. This is, probably early 2000s, a large pin oak. The same thing, declining back. You know, a lot of these urban trees, you know, you look in the books and, a pin oak can live 200 years. Well, that's in nature. You know, urban trees don't live quite that long. They have a lot to put up with. So you saw, you know, taking these big trees down is a lot of trouble, a lot of work, right? Boy, do we have it good now. Randy has his crane. You know, we have all this fancy equipment. In 1898, for some reason, they were taking down, I found this photo, they were taking down the Pride of Campus, is the name of this oak tree. And here is President Schaefer overseeing I don't think I've ever seen Bruce Harold, Sally Mason, or anyone else come and watch me take down a tree. I don't think I'd care for it. Are you going to haul some brush here, folks? But anyway, they're watching them take down this tree, and I haven't quite figured out where this was. I think it was near where McBride is. So I had a meeting at the International Writers Workshop on Clinton Street in the old Shambaugh house, and Josie Newman's the director or assistant director of it, and we're going to plant a few trees there. We had to take it out on the ash. She wants some other ones planted, and she said, I think I have something you might want. And I was like, well, I wonder what this could be. So I go down the creepy basement, and there is a chair with the photo talking about this chair was made from the Pride of Campus. I did not know this existed until a month ago. So she goes, do you want it? And I was already out the door with it. Yeah, I'll take it. You know, it's okay. Shambaugh, I don't remember, Charles maybe? I don't know, had this made from that tree in 1898. And how it got down there, I mean, it was in his house. But why it's down there? So it's now in my office, and I'm trying to determine if I want to, I wonder if the museum would have any interest in something like this. There's the chair. It kind of looks like an electric chair. So I think when I put it in there, the guys were worried that I was going to, that's the rear end chewing chair, but it's not. It's actually quite comfortable. I did a little looking, and I found this photo from 1904 with the chair in the Shambaugh house. And if you look, there's a seal right there. Whoop. And if you look, there's not a seal. So someone pried that thing off. I don't know. We may try and have something remade. But, so getting back to your question about using some of this wood. I have been fighting this for 22 years. We used to take all the wood to the landfill, which just drove me crazy, and pay money to get rid of good wood. We finally got that stopped, and we sell our log piles through surplus. The first one we did was 300 tons, and I think it went for $160. The last few have been, if we get $8 or $10, That's something. And there's some good logs in there, saw logs. I mean, I think people use them for firewood. That's one step above, to me, of sending it to the dump. So I really, it's hard. The red tape and everything we have to go through. We have had things made. We took down a Austrian pine north of the old Capitol a year or two ago. It was 65 years old. And we had a frame made for Bruce Harold as a going away gift with the picture of the old Capitol. And we've done pans and stuff, but I just think that there would be a market. I mean, how many people here would like a more comfortable Shambaugh chair? I mean, I know Iowa State has a tree cycle program where they use campus trees to make furniture and clocks, and you look at it, and they're high dollar, they're beautiful. There's got to be something we can do. I mean, make coasters at least with the Hawkeye, and just have something, anything. You know, every little bit would help. So, well, maybe when I come back in a few years, I'll have better news on that front. But right now, what we do is we sell the logs through surplus, and we also give them to the art department if they want them for projects or to burn in the kilns. And the rest, like our chip pile and some of the smaller logs, we have ground and colored. So we've cut our mulch. We don't have to buy mulch from outside people anymore. It's actually a cost savings, and we're reusing something that was generated on campus. So that, I mean, it's better than nothing. Planting trees. So we usually, get ready to gasp. We usually try and plant 2 for every 1 we take down. Lately, we've been planting 300 to 400 trees a year. So that's I hope to increase that number in the next few years. So we have I have some brokers, and we have semi-loads brought in. I don't like, and we buy from Earl May and Iowa State Landscaping and Sanders Creek here. They have really good stuff. It's just sometimes I want different things, and it's hard to find. So this is one load we got, I think it was last spring. And we have equipment to help, so we can plant a little bit bigger trees. This differs from my own personal philosophy, and I think as time goes on, they're coming around as my back gets more and more sore. So I prefer smaller trees. Imagine that. They're cheaper. They don't take as much of this to plant, and they seem to take off better in the landscape. So if you have a chance between a great big bald and burlap tree, thinking that's going to take off, the smaller tree will take off faster. I have a friend here from Washington that came up who has a tree spade business, and you remember Dave, is his name, Dave Greiner. Jean, this old lady that was on our tree committee, she had a Norway maple out in her she had 2 of them in the terrace. And her husband, I think, had one spaded in, and then they had another one planted. And she gave Robbie all kinds of trouble because that next one was small. It was a little tree. It was a cheapskate. Got this little cheap tree. She couldn't remember which one's which because that smaller one caught up and actually eventually took over the Norway maple, so the bigger one. So, and I've watched this over 30 years in the biz now. Smaller trees will take off much faster. But still, I mean, we still plan their immediate impact on the landscape. When we plant one thing about bald and burlap trees and containerized ones, I don't care if you go to Iowa State Landscaping or where you get your trees, they're always too deep in the pot or the root ball. So when you plant a tree, if you saw what we did to this tree, we probably took off about 10 inches of soil on the top, down to the first roots. And those should be at or slightly above ground level. So, some people, you're planting those trees awful high. Well, that's right. And I'll show you what happens when you plant trees a little low. Sometimes we get really big trees to plant. So the iconic larch, the one with the low branch that all the kids sat on at the Jazz Fest and everything. That went over a few years ago. Well, we wanted to replace it. And I put the feelers out, and we found 2 large trees in the Midwest. They were both in Chicago. One was 6 foot tall, and I really wanted to put a blue blanket around it and a red ball. But I was afraid to bend it over. It was like Charlie Brown's Christmas tree. It really looked bad. And then there's this monster. Well, we have one that's a 12 or 14-inch diameter large tree. I was like, well, that's really big. Can you send me a picture? And in the nursery, it looked just like that one. It has a low branch going off the side. I was like, okay, we have to get that. So we had that shipped in, and that was large. You can see how big that root ball is. And there it is in the ground. We planted it in November. It's doing well now. So hopefully 30, 40 years ago, or from now. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Carol. It's this tree right here. So hopefully there'll be children on those branches. People go, oh, isn't that terrible? Those kids climb the tree. Yeah. We don't want to foster appreciation in trees by having children climb them. Come on. It's fine. And that tree, I know there's a lot of conjecture about how old it was. The oldest photo I found of it was about a 7 foot tall tree. It was 1953. So it wasn't all that old, but it was iconic. Had a lot of character.
Who were all those guys in your crew?
Well, I think so. Let's see how many tree guys are actually there. 1, 2, 3, 4. The rest are all either supervisors or mowers that want to get on the action. They're always like, the tree guys get all the press. Well, you know. But no, we had a hole that looked like a foxhole. I mean, it was 12 feet across. It was huge.
Wasn't the ground frozen?
Not completely. It was cold. I have planted a tree every month except February. So if you want to go out there and hack a hole in the frozen ground, you could plant a tree, I suppose. But I should have done it this year. We had a little bit of a warm-up. I thought about it one of these days. We do have a tree spade. We primarily use that for salvage. So this was over by MEBRF, and it was going to get cut down, so we salvaged it. Not the best time of year to be moving it, is it, Dave? Sometimes we get the 8 a.m. call, kind of like the pruning, like, you need to move this tree today. And while the excavators are awaiting our arrival, that's always exciting. Sometimes we have trees that are too large to move with our 44-inch tree spade, which, by the way, it's a 1972 model. It's a year younger than me, and that thing is just awesome. I mean, they just don't break down. It's wonderful. This was the first conifer garden we put in over at the old Hansher, and this is after the flood, and a few things made it, and one of them was this Don redwood right here. It's a variety called Ogon or Gold Rush, has yellow needles, and it was too big for us to move, so we hire Dirk's Tree Moving out of Waterloo. He is the best. He has an 80 and 90-inch tree spade. Does great work. Sometimes we move trees that are too big for him, and this was a yellow wood over at Lot 14 near Fieldhouse and South Quad. They were going to reconfigure the lot, so we dug that by hand and then had our loader move it, barely move it, and it now resides in front of Boyd Law. So when you're coming down Melrose making the turn, it's right there.
How long did it take to get done with the shock of moving?
The question was, how long did the shock last for a tree like that? I usually say about 3 years. The first year they kind of sleep. Second year they creep. Generally the third year they leap. That one, well, it's hanging on. Sometimes those bigger trees, they'll take 5 or 6 years for them to, but I mean, it still has all of its leaves. It's got good growth. It's just small right now. It's putting them back in the roots. We have a storage nursery. That's a terrible picture. I really need to get out there and do that, but at least it's mowed in this picture. So if we have to move stuff for construction, we move it out here for a bit before we move it back onto campus.
Where is that
That is out across from West High, and that's where our mulch mountain is, and the cheapo log piles, and we have a tree nursery there. So kind of getting back to the, trees, I love trees with stories. So this is the William Penn oak in Pennsylvania, the Quaker Friends Meeting House. I don't remember the burg it's in. So this tree is 600 plus years old. It is absolutely enormous. It's a white oak. And this is a seedling off of it. This guy here, Evan Fales, is a retired professor of theology he was at the English Philosophy Building. I'm taking down this big hackberry along the river that had a crack. And, we get people out there ask, well, why are you taking down that tree? And you explain to them, and some just don't want to hear it. Well, he was one of them, and I'm looking for any diversionary tactic there is. And he had a shirt that said Pennsylvania on it. And I said, oh, you're from, or you know about Pennsylvania? Yeah, I'm from there. I go, oh, do you know about Penn's Woods, which is this really neat book put out the 300th anniversary of William Penn Landing. So 1932, they made 500 copies of this, cataloging all the 300-plus-year-old trees out there, photos, stories, the whole bit. And then in 1982, made a 50-year update. Anyway, I'm telling them about this. And I never heard of that, never heard of that. And I go, well, I'll bring you one of my copies, and you can take a look at it. And we're looking at it. And the first tree in the book is the William Penn oak. He goes, my mom taught school at that place for 40 years. Do you want acorns off of it? And I was like, yeah. And he went out there, and he got me 2 seedlings. So we planted, one right outside of EPB. And now, we're great friends, and we kind of chuckle about how it all started. He's a wonderful woodworker. And this is being broadcast. I probably shouldn't say this, but I've given him some wood over the years, and he makes good stuff out of it. So it's neat. He's a neat fella. Has hitchhiked over 100,000 miles, he says. This is the Sir Isaac Newton tree. This is what he was sitting under, and an apple fell on his head, and the theory of gravity came about. This tree is still alive. It's over 400 years old. It's at Woolsthorpe Manor in England. And a friend of mine, Lawrence Ballard from University of Nebraska, he propagates trees there, gave me some. So I grafted it. Well, Neil deGrasse Tyson came to speak. And I have a friend who brings in these speakers. And I never bother him. I never bothered Kelly. But I had to bother him, Kelly Sokum. And I said, hey, can I get tickets? He's like, oh, yeah. Do you want to meet him? I was like, yeah, one of the 5 people I want to meet. Yes, of course. So he gives me tickets. And I'm ironing my shirt the night before, getting the sport coat out. And my wife goes, what are you doing? And I go, we're going to see Neil tomorrow. She goes, oh, what about the girls? And I go, well, they're not coming, are they? They're, they're like little. They can't. She goes, well, my parents are out of town. We don't have anyone to watch the kids. And I was like, cue the so I gave my tickets to a buddy of mine, and he took his son, and he said, I go, how did it go, Dean? And he's like, oh, it was okay. He was late. There's so many people mobbing him. Couldn't really talk to him or anything. And I was like, oh, that's too bad. So next day I went and told Kelly, hey, I gave the tickets to someone else. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And he goes, well, what are you doing? And I had grafted this tree knowing that Neil's favorite scientist of all time was Sir Isaac Newton. And I wanted to present it to him. And Kelly goes, well, do you want to come with me? We got to pick him up and take him to the airport. And I was like, yeah. So I'm sitting here in the back seat. I still remember Kelly, Neil's getting in the front seat. And I can just see in his face, Kelly goes, hey, Neil, I'd like for you to sit in the back. I've got someone I'd like for you to meet. And I could just see, I could read his thoughts. He goes, this is a kidnap for ransom deal. Because I'm in my work clothes and sawdust. And he goes, hello, I'm Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm a fanboy. My name's Andy, And as we're leaving, he goes, I really have a craving for ice cream. Is there any ice cream stores? I've heard good things about Whitey's. And I'm like, Yeah, it's right over here. Kelly pulls up on the sidewalk, and Neil hops out, and I'm like, I don't think they're open, And he knocks on the door, and the lady's like, she opens the door. He comes out bringing us ice cream sundaes, and he's sitting there and eating his. I'm sitting next to him, and he goes, oh, I just love malt powder. Good malt powder. And he's got his mustache. I'm like, I cannot believe this is happening. So as we're driving down the road, Kelly goes, hey, have you heard of the Sir Isaac Newton tree? Yes, much like pieces of the cross. Everyone has one of it. None's substantiated. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, those idiots. And he goes, what's that? And I go, well, this is a substantiated Sir Isaac Newton tree. So I gave it to him, and he was a real joy. I mean, he was nothing but kind and funny, and talk about smart. I mean, there's a lot of smart people. You could just see the wheels turning, and he almost missed the flight. We were in the parking lot talking about trees so long. It was just great. So that's kind of a claim to fame. This is the last known documented Johnny Appleseed tree. It was found in Ohio. A friend of mine, Scott Scodgerbo, went on a wild goose chase. There's Jeff Meyer was from Amana, and he had the famous and historic tree nursery, and he always had one, the Johnny Appleseed tree. The problem is it's a Rambo apple, and Johnny did not graft. He only grew stuff from seed, and you can't get a cultivar. You can't get a Red Delicious or from an Appleseed. So he always wondered if there was a true Johnny Appleseed tree. Well, he saw an old newspaper clipping about this school that was grafting Cyanwood off of the last known Johnny Appleseed tree. Same county as the one Jeff Meyer found his in. And so he calls the school, and this is the 50s. And it's such a fun story. He calls the school, and they're like, well, we don't know anything about this. This is 40 years later. But you can try calling this teacher. So he calls, well, they died 10 years ago, but there's always a but. But. Finally got a hold of the family, saw the journals. The tree's no longer there. It went down in the 70s. But one of the grafted trees is in front of the bakery downtown. So he went and got Cyanwood off of that, and we now have several of those on campus. And it's the reason I don't cut this beard. So when I go dress up like Johnny Appleseed with the tin pan on my head, I kind of look the part. Kids, most of the time, could care less about the tree. They're always like, Johnny, why don't you wear shoes? And I tell them why. You can't be encumbered with such modern conveniences as shoes. But it's always fun. And to go back, and now some of them are starting to fruit. And to take a bite out of a piece of history from that very tree, you take a bite and you just think, God, this tastes terrible. It's a cider apple, so it's just bitter and terrible, but it's still pretty cool. We have an orchard on campus, and this is not the original. This is a grafted tree from the original. The first orchard in Iowa was 1790s near Fort Madison, planted by a Catholic priest. And this lady called me maybe 5 years ago, wanted me to try and graft this tree. I tried, had no success. I sent it off to Kansas. Her grandfather, she was elderly. Her grandfather knew where this orchard was. There's one tree left. He grafted this. And that tree is about this big around, and it's about this tall. But we got that going. And there's another one down by Lowell that one time was the largest fruiting tree west of the Mississippi. And I think this is a Henderson Llewellyn tree. It's 7 miles away from his nursery. Who's Henderson Llewellyn? He's the one that started the fruit industry in the Pacific Northwest. He loaded up his nursery in 1847, took it out 3 wagon loads out there. On that load of trees was the Bing cherry. I'd like the movie rights for this. They lost a wagon load. Some Native Americans did not like them. They start ripping into the wagon, see trees, which they liked. They even canoed the pregnant lady across the... it was just full of trials and tribulations. But I'm sure that's one of his trees. The Literary Grove, Connie. I found a nursery that sells trees that have been propagated from famous people's houses, gardens. Trees that were there when they actually lived there, walked under them, and we got a few of them. I thought this goes hand in hand with educating, or landscape educating people. We have, let's see, a white oak and a sage orange from Faulkner's house, a birch from Robert Frost, a pecan from Alex Haley, a red maple from Walden Pond, Thoreau's, a hackberry from Edgar Allan Poe. It's one of the few hackberries I like on campus. What else is it? Oh, a sycamore and a bur oak from Mark Twain cave down Hannibal. And we had a ceremony at the writer's workshop, and people would read an excerpt from one of their books or a poem or something. It was really neat. It was a neat thing for the students to do.
Where is that on campus?
The writer's workshop, it's on North Clinton Street. Yeah, it's in the yard around the writer's workshop. They're small, so I think people are expecting, you look down for now. And we want to keep adding to this. So, I collected a friend of mine collected some chestnuts off of a Chinese chestnut where Vonnegut lived up in the north end, and I've got some others in the works too. So hopefully this will be an ongoing thing. There's a groundskeeper at the state champion sycamore that is Mark Twain tree. We grow quite a few things in our greenhouse, which is a condemned laundry building. It works good, steam, heat, water, light. Another kind of famous tree, and I will be, you may have read the door prizes today. One of the door prizes is a seedling off of this very tree. So the problem is I couldn't get hacked out of my storage area. It's still frozen. So whoever is lucky enough to get this, I will send it to you or drop it off at your house, okay? So Mark Hurst, a friend of mine, he was a photographer. It was a terrible car accident, and he was convalescing at home, and he was missing taking pictures, and I got to do something, get out of this chair. And he had always admired this bur oak out in the field, so he decided, I'm going to take a picture of that every day. And it's not just 50 yards away, same spot every day. Some days it's a close-up of a leaf or the bark. One of my favorites is it was raining really hard, and he's in his pickup, and it's off in the distance, and he's like, I don't want to get soaked. And he just takes a picture out the driver's side window, and every drop on that window has an inverted bur oak with a silhouette. It's just a wonderful, there's dawn, dusk, midnight, and the lightning storm. It's such a neat book, and it was so simple. Why couldn't I have thought of this? But, I said, Mark, everyone that reads this book wants one of these seedlings. And I'm thinking to myself, I got 1,000,001 get-rich-slow, go-broke schemes involving trees. I'm thinking, well, give me a call. We'll get some acorns and grow them and sell them. We're not going to sell them. We'll just give them to people. I was like, wow. But it had only had seed twice in the 20 years or so he knew about this. And so in 17, I went and we picked them up. There he is, helping me. And there's the tree in the background. And there they are in the greenhouse. What makes these even more special now is the tree is no longer. It went over in the derecho. And I think they cored it. The middle was hollow, but it was around 180 years old, give or take. So I've given some back to Mark, and he's divvied them up around Platteville where the tree was. I think we've given some to master gardeners and forestry places, just for door prizes. And someone will be getting one of these today. So, and I think I've only got about 50 left, so they're pretty special. And then some of you may have heard we're getting an Anne Frank tree. So there's 18 of these in the world. The tree went down in 2010. It was outside her house. She speaks of it flowering. I think she kissed Peter under it. And when that tree went over, they propagated it. And initially, they got 13. And there are places like the White House and Holocaust Museum and Capitol and NATO headquarters, those sort of places. And I remember thinking at the time, boy, that'd be cool to get one of these. It's a European horse chestnut. It's their version of the Buckeye. And I didn't think, how am I going to, frost this cupcake to get one here at the university? Well, fast forward to just 3 years ago, Dr. Kirsten Bali called me, says, hey, I'm thinking about getting one of these. She teaches courses on Anne Frank. I was like, she did the majority of the legwork on the application. They said it was the best one ever. We're getting one of the next 3 that are coming. So there's 18 in the world. It's going to be planted on the Pentecrest on Arbor Day, the last Friday in April, April 29th. So you come out and see it. I think there's a Gold Rush fund. It's kind of like GoFundMe if you want to throw some money at, but it's pretty exciting to get something like that here. Something else, does anyone know what this is? This is called a witch's broom. So it's a mutation primarily in conifer trees, and as if like historic pears or big oak trees or something else isn't enough for me to look at when I'm driving around, I also look for these. So if you don't like my driving, stay off the sidewalk, I guess. We take cuttings off of these and graft them. And that's how they get a lot of these dwarf conifers that you see that are so expensive in the nursery industry. But what I really like about dwarf conifers is they don't outgrow their space. They look like you're out there at Disney World pruning these trees or the shrubs. That's too much work. I want to plant something that's not going to outgrow its space. So the American Conifer Society, I will not be responsible for you staying up all night looking at this website, because you will. It's the gardens, the collectors, they just have the most amazing things. But we have 2 American Conifer Society reference gardens on campus. So we've planted these conifers, and this was outside of Calvin Hall. This is what we call PI Hills and Poison Ivy Hill. It was an embarrassment. Most students and their families would walk by here. Orientation, it was just a mess. So we got the okay to start cleaning all that out. And our install crew, they're really good with stone. They put all that stone in to make it look natural. I think there's 8 semi-loads, and they put a fountain in there as well. So this is, I think, a year after planting, and this is 6 years later. That's not the best. You can kind of see what it looks like here. There's the water feature, and the stone shows up a little better. And it's really taken off. And you can see what I'm talking about. A lot of these will grow a 1/4 inch a year. I mean, this has never been pruned. That's the way it grows. And that's a Norway spruce. You know what Norway spruces are, the great big trees? That's a broom off of a Norway spruce. So there's some neat stuff in there. It's hidden. I don't know how to dress this up. It's behind the dumpsters. It's between Halsey and Calvin. There's a little walkway back there. So it's a nice, secluded, hidden spot. People really enjoy it. They take their lunch back there. The birds and the little critters are always using that water feature. So take a look. There's another one by EMRB that we've installed too. I think this is a picture from last year. This tree actually came from the original conifer garden that it made it through the flood at Hampshire, and we backed a tree spade up in there, and it's done well. I really like conifers, and we try and put them in when we can. These are weeping Alaskan cedars. They just remind me of, this is when I should pull out like my Bob Ross wig, and a happy little tree. It just looks like something he'd paint. I just love that. They have no problems. That's also at the Writer's Workshop. Oh, Charlie Hunter, formerly of Keokuk, Iowa, now of Pella, is one of the world's foremost ginkgo experts. I met him at a conifer. You never know who you're going to meet at the conifer meetings. And he called me 3 years ago and said, Cheryl and I are moving, and we don't know what to do with the collection. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah. My yard is full. It takes 12 minutes to mow my lawn, and I'll never get that 12 minutes back. I don't know if he's spent 12 minutes mowing in the last decade. I have never seen so many plants in one yard. It is unbelievable. And the new owners didn't want anything. We want to play baseball in the front yard. So he had moved here in 2006. So all this was after 2006. So the crew and I spent 2 weeks down there digging, and we now have probably one of the best ginkgo collections in North America. It's on the east side of Hampshire. I've got more in storage to put out, but if you get a chance, there's some weird stuff. There's a couple trees. This is one of them. He's big into grafting. There's 20 varieties of ginkgo on that one tree. Weeping, variegated leaf, you name it. It's really cool. We also have an oak collection. Oaks are my favorite trees. This is out at the former Oakdale campus, now the research park. So we put the oak back into Oakdale. I made the mistake of looking at the 10-year plan map where I was told there was never going to be a building where I put these. Well, it's now home to the central sterilization unit, so we had to move all these. They were doing really well. Some of them are, we'll see how they do. We had to move them all. But there's about 70 species of oaks. I mean, we have stuff from a friend of mine collected from China, Quercus wutaiensis, Chinese mountain oak, and there's probably 6 in the U.S. He goes, don't kill it because I'm not going back. And it's doing wonderful. I've gotten seed off of it and planted it. And oaks are very promiscuous. They like to mess around. So this is like Frankenstein's lab. I can't wait to see what some of these acorns produce. We do have a tree inventory. If you just type in U of I trees, University of Iowa trees, this should come up. But you can look up any tree on campus if you want to know what it is. This is the state champion black walnut. There's different symbols, mean it's a memorial tree, a state champ, something special about it. You can look those up. Pests. We have the former gypsy moth, now spongy moth, gold-spotted oak borer, Asian longhorn beetle, thousand canker and walnuts, and of course the emerald ash borer. These are all invasive. We don't have all these on campus. We've just had the emerald ash borer so far. But every time I see this, I just shudder. It makes me wonder what's lurking in there. So we do need to tighten up the borders and make sure pallets and boxes are heat treated to kill any potential pests. And it goes both ways. We've sent pine wilt to Japan, and most of these pests are spread by us. The ash trees that died, well, we're going camping, better load up the wood, and we just end up spreading it. So this is a street, Dearborn, Michigan in the 60s, elm, cathedral-like, down the whole street. Same street a few years later. And I wonder what this could be planted here. My guess is ash trees. So let's go to Ohio, and we can see what the ash trees look like before and after on the right. So we didn't learn our lessons very well, did we? We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them, right? I love Einstein. He's full of good stuff. So unless we want more of this or this, we have to do less of this. And no, this is the wrong slide. Sometimes I think campus planners, landscape architects, nursery people, they should have been corn farmers, because a healthy urban forest has multiple species in it. I mean, a block or two of the same thing to, train the eye to something is fine, but row after row, block after block of the same tree leads to nothing but heartache. Oh gosh, does anyone recognize this cornfield? Tree planting. All the locust trees along, it just drives me crazy going down there. If emerald locust borer ever showed, there's no such thing, but if it ever did, Corville's going to be busy. I should take a mention. We decided not to chemically treat our ash trees for multiple reasons. I didn't feel this was going to be something we could spray our way out of, inject our way out of, and a lot of these trees had other issues. We actually went through to see if there were any worth saving. They had a lot of structural problems, rot problems. They weren't aging well, so we just made the decision to remove them all. We left them as long as we could to get the benefits, but we decided not to chemically treat. So intellectuals solve problems, geniuses prevent them. So we're trying to be geniuses as we can, so we follow the 10-20-30 rule. So that's, we're doing this by diversifying the urban forest. No more than 10% of one species, example, white oak, no more than 20% of one genus, so all oak species, and then no more than 30% of one family, which would be oak, beech, chestnut. To me, this is in California, but that is a wonderful looking street. I don't think there's a repeat of a tree in there. There will always be shade on that street, unless Russia invades. So, what do we look for when we look for trees to plant on campus? Things that are pest resistant, adaptable to poor soils, if you can call those soils, rubble, tolerance to extreme weathers, the floods, the ice storms, all that. De-icing salts. I've heard many people say, don't you enjoy walking on university sidewalks? Because they're always clean. They are, because of the amount of salt we put in. I don't think the trees enjoy it. Not invasive. So there's a lot of problems with trees being released that could be considered invasive, and we try to not plant any of those. Available in trade. I mean, there's all kinds of trees I want, but good luck finding them. I mean, they may be just one-of-a-kind things that you can only find in Europe or very small. And there really is no perfect tree. I mean, if there was, I'd be selling it, and you wouldn't be listening to me talk today. A couple of the ones I like, I really like Sycamore Maple. This is not a sycamore, it's a true maple, Acer pseudoplantinus. And this is a variety called Esk Sunset. And it's a smaller tree. In Europe, sycamore maple becomes this large, very large tree. Salt doesn't bother it at all. This is really good around a patio. It has these two-tone leaves, so the top is variegated. It looks like it's splashed with white paint. And then on the bottom is this purple. So if you have it above a patio or along steps or something, when the sun comes through, it's really neat. It shimmers in the wind. This is cucumber magnolia. So this is one that's in our arboretum. I planted 6 of them, and this one came out variegated like this. And it's a spontaneous mutation, and I've been watching this. So I planted this in 2006, and it's now twice as big as its biggest sister, 4 times as big as its smallest sister, and it is stunning. I call it cucular blast. We've actually got this undergoing trial out west to see if it is worthy of being introduced in the nursery industry. Zelkova, this is called Goshiki. Japanese means snow on the mountain. I mean, these trees are a little different, but they make statements. I want people to go, wow, what is that? I've never heard of that thing. This is a red obelisk, European beech, blood red in the spring, just a wonderful tree. And as our landscapes get smaller, the campus gets more fragmented, we need trees that aren't going to gobble up space. This tree will get about 60 feet tall by maybe 10 feet wide. And here's another European beech. No, it doesn't need to be watered. It's a weeping variety. It's called Purple Fountain. These are a type of sweet gum called Slender Silhouette. I have these on my property line at home, and I planted them June 6, 2008. They were knee-high, the size of my pinky, and they're now 60 feet tall, and the trunks are this big. They just grow like crazy. Great fall color. 70 feet tall by 5 feet wide. I mean, they look like exclamation points in the landscape. Redbud, a small tree. This one's called Covey or Lavender Twist. It's a weeping one. It only gets as tall as you stake it, so it could literally be a ground cover. Let's see, some of the other pests. Once in a while we have outside nurseries come and plant, and they put a white oak right under that light. how long do you think it'll be before that tree gets right up in there? I mean, sometimes you have to look around when you're planting. Here, I was talking about planting too deep, you know, how you should plant high. This is a tree that's planted by a contractor. It's a sugar maple, doing real poorly. And when you plant too deep, they tend to create girdling roots, which actually compress the vascular system of the tree and will kill it. So, construction, yeah, that's a big one. Pests. That hole was about 40 feet deep. That tree lived until last summer, and we had to take it down for a project. Need an electrician? Sure. Need my trees compacted? No, not really. We have a lot of heavy equipment that we find parking on top of tree root zones. Of course, the excavators and cranes that affect the roots. Many of you might not know that they also can affect the tops of trees when they tumble over at the president's house. We have windstorms. This is from the 98 windstorm, the straight line winds. It's just crazy. They lost, this was 6 months or so before I started the U, and they lost something like 150 trees. That west side of the Pentecost was a lot more heavily forested. A lot of history. 2006 tornado. This was near our shop. We lost 70 trees that day. My oldest daughter came during this. I don't expect anything less of the women in my life. I remember in the delivery room, the lights go off, the sirens are blaring. I'm like, what's going on? Oh, there's a tornado. Really? Oh, shit. So after mom and baby got put away, I hightailed it up to the walnut on the Pentecost to make sure it was okay. I got 2 weeks off. The good thing about that tornado, I got 2 weeks off. Everyone else had to deal with this. So there's a big cottonwood that went down Myrtle Avenue. We also have ice storms, the aforementioned floods. Oh, this is a new pest that's really developed in the last 4 or 5 years. So this is Shawnee brave bald cypress. I love bald cypress. We've started using them as street trees, and Shawnee brave is very fast growing. In the world of trees, fast growing usually equates weak wooded, short-lived. Bald cypress, the oldest living thing east of the Mississippi was a bald cypress called the Senator, Kissimmee, Florida. They cored it 3,500 years old. I mean, these things, they don't have any problems. They grow super fast as long as people don't snap them off. And does anyone know Chuck Porto at Iowa State Landscaping? Yeah, I think he's the one snapping these off, so we buy more. I've told him that before. He says it's not, but no. We've had 60 of these snapped off around the Pentecost in the last 4 years. In the previous 20 years, I might have had 4 or 5. Something's going on, and I don't know what it is, but I can't say anymore because I'm being recorded. It might be used in a court of law, but if I catch them. There's some other things we do. This is a great horned owl baby at the Raptor Center at the time, and we had a report of this, so I got to put this baby owl back in its nest out at the Oakdale campus, and what so cute, just this puffball. But the thing I noticed is it's even at that age, its talons were the size of my hand. And I was a little concerned. I said, do I need to worry about that? Oh, no. If he knew how to use them, he would use that to crawl back up to the nest. They use their beak. And I was like, no. So I'm halfway up, and I'm holding this thing. I'm thinking, if he knew how to use it, what if he gets nervous and goes like this right in my hand? Luckily, I got up there, and my hand still works, no problems. Sometimes we put live birds back in trees. Sometimes we put dead birds in trees. We used to have a problem with crows, which I don't see them anymore. I love crows. But there was a dead one, and someone decided that if you put a dead crow in the tree, they'll keep the flock away. I don't know. I'd rather see the crows, personally. And sometimes we take dead pigs out of trees. Some fraternity boys hung this outside of a sorority girl's house, and we got to take that out. So that was quite the operation. This is the state champion black walnut outside McBride Hall. the one that I snuck up to make sure it was all right. Many of you may have seen it's got the lightning protection in it. So let's go, Sherman Peabody, let's, go back in the Wayback Machine. In 1874, I thought that was pretty funny because that's about the date that tree was planted. So let's go back. So this is the 1950s, and here's that tree. And 1919, it's this one here. 1918, and you can see the boys are signing up for the war right under there. And this slide got me to thinking, how many people have walked under that tree? I would say it's millions. So if we have average 20,000 students a year for 150 years, that's a lot of people that have walked under that tree. That's pretty neat to think about. There it is in 1907, the branch. Here it is in 1905 as McBride's been just finished, completed. It's the tree right here. And I really like the tree protection zone they have. Now they want about a foot per inch of caliper, roughly. I don't know what that was. Put some boards on the tree, wire them up. Here it is, 1905. This would have been the spring, right before they decided to move, or right before they moved Calvin. It's this tree right here. And this is the oldest photo I found of it when Calvin Hall was still there, and it is this tree right here. So I'm thinking it to be 15 to 20 years old at that point, which would put it right at that 1870, 1871. That's pretty neat. That tree does not fruit. And I don't know if it's because it's not pollinated. I've driven the alleys around. There's no walnut trees around. And I've thought about planting one on the Pentecost, but I'm a little afraid it might have 9 tons of walnuts the first time. Finally! Just break limbs, and the groundskeeper would probably shoot me. But it does not have seed, so I can't start. We have had it propagated before. A fellow in Missouri, but the greenhouse, the heat quit or something, so we lost them, but we'll propagate again. This is State Champion Elm outside Schaefer Hall. It's the one that on this side of the tree there's a pipe sticking out. I was giving a tour to children, little like grade school kids, and one little girl we're walking to, she goes, "Oh, it's the tree with the water fountain in it." And I said, "Huh?" She goes, "Yeah, that pipe there. My cousins like to drink out of it." I'm like, "Oh, is your cousin okay?" They put those in to alleviate the wonderful appetizing slime flux. I bet that tastes terrible. It doesn't work, but it's dripping something out. This tree in the 98 windstorm lost about 30 feet of the canopy. It's not aging real well, but it's still an impressive tree. You think there were 3,000 elms on campus. We have 2 left. We've actually started replanting American elms, a variety called Princeton that does not get Dutch elm disease. I mean, it's been growing since the 20s in Princeton, New Jersey. No Dutch elm, so we hope to return these. And here's a picture of that tree. It's this one here, 1920. A little bit closer up, this tree here. It still has the double leader like it does now. 1905, right here. 1902. And this is the oldest one. I think this is 1897. It's right here. So it goes about the same, back as long as the walnut. And this is the only tree we chemically treat on campus. We have it injected with a fungicide every 2 years to keep Dutch elm disease away. State Champion Scarlet Oak is near Hancher. We actually got Hancher moved. The footprint of Hancher moved to accommodate this tree and about 6 other 100-year-old white pines. State Champion, this is like seeing a Triceratops or something. This is an American chestnut. It's out at the Oakdale campus. For those of you not familiar with chestnuts, there's a fungus that came over in the early 1900s, first found in the Bronx Zoo, that's killed them all. I mean, 1 of every 4 trees east of the Mississippi was an American chestnut, and they're all gone. And this is one large one. Iowa, for whatever reason, Wisconsin, they still have a few big ones left. I think it's just because of isolation. State champion Don Redwood over by where the hospital greenhouse is by speech and hearing. How do I say this delicately? There's going to be a new hospital tower over there. We're trying to encourage them to include this tree. It probably dates from the late 40s, early 50s. This was thought to be an extinct species. They only known by fossil records. They found it in, I believe it's 1944 in Szechuan, China. So pretty special tree. Hope we can keep it. And some of the ones that have left over the years, this was a Carolina hemlock state champion. I found the receipts. When the flood came, everyone acted like their hair was on fire, and they were just pitching stuff. And I'm like, oh, is that tree stuff? You know, digging in the trash, and I find this book of mimeograph receipts. Remember in the old days, the purple things? I found the receipt for this and its sister tree, 1927, from a nursery in Center Point. And I've still got that, but the tree died maybe 5 years ago. I've still got the log. I'd like to do something with it. I'd like to replace it, but you cannot find Carolina hemlock anywhere. If anyone knows, let me know. Yeah. This is a yellow wood. It was a gift from the governor of Kentucky in the early 1900s. It was at Lot 14 by South Quad. Amazing. It bloomed during graduation. It looked like a white cloud. Just such a neat tree until the storm took it down. And you can see the ROTC van got crushed by it. I grabbed some seeds. It really wasn't the time of year to grab them, but I got them to come up in the greenhouse. So that tree lives on. So a few pictures. Spring's coming today. Fall's very nice. Let's just skip past that one, shall we? So that's the end of my talk, so I rambled on a little bit, so we answered some questions, so I'm not too worried. Connie, you gonna kick me out because I talked too long? Not at all. Okay, so thanks for coming out today.
I'll ask the question and then I'll step aside, I guess. Have you heard about the problem in the Northwest U.S. of burl cutting? Ever seen that around here?
Yes, that's burls are abnormal growths on trees. Maybe some of you have seen them. They're not really harmful to trees, but woodworkers, they're very highly valued by woodworkers. And I guess out in the Pacific Northwest, there's quite the cottage industry of stealing them, going into national parks and such and sawing them off, which damages the tree. So I have not seen that many around here. We run into a few burls, and I usually find someone that wants to use them for some sort of art project, but I haven't seen it. My forester friends, they have more problem with walnut theft, I think, than burl cutting. I haven't heard them really say anything, but yeah, it's quite the problem out there.
Yeah. Okay. And that's because woodworkers like to make the pots and things of that nature. Yep. Okay. This is, I think I'm going to be able to read this okay. We have a Siberian elm in our yard. The birds love it, but the neighbor says it's invasive. Is it invasive in Iowa? And if so, should we remove it? It's quite large.
Oh, gosh. I don't want to put someone on the spot, but yeah, Siberian elm is invasive. It's not... They tend to be weak-wooded, somewhat short-lived, and they have a lot of seed production. So I've seen pure stands of them moving into woodlands before. Right west of the Ronald McDonald House, there's an old Siberian elm, and you can see all of its progeny, which are about this big now, and becoming a real problem. And the neighbor's right in this case. And it sounds like perhaps you like birds. I would suggest taking that down. It's going to be expensive, sorry. But possibly a tree that birds really like is oak trees. So people are going to look at me and go, what's he talking about? That doesn't have fruit like crab apples. Oak trees, 98% of all songbirds feed their young caterpillars, and oaks support 400 types of butterfly larvae. So you know, when you talk about bird trees, yeah, crab apples are great and all, serviceberry, but you think about the oaks. Those are the ones you want to plant, and that tree will be around for a long time. Now, I can't help you if your neighbor gives you a hard time about acorns falling, but that's
It'll be a while
Yeah.
before the acorns start falling. Okay, where can one buy hickory trees? I understand they're hard to come by.
yes, part of the problem in the nursery industry, hickories have this very large tap root, so it makes growing them in a nursery situation in a pot very hard to make it profitable. They're kind of slow growing. The hickory tree in your yard that's a foot tall will have 6 foot of root on it. It really develops a root. The best thing to do, in my opinion, would be to collect seed and plant it. Plant multiple ones because the squirrels will find some. There are some pots called Anderson pots, which are about 14 inches deep, and they have an open bottom, and that's what we use to grow oaks and hickories, stuff with tap roots. You put them on a screen, and the air prunes the roots, so you have this nice plug. There's a nursery where I bought quite a few, our tree committee in Washington has bought quite a few from Forest Keeling in Ellsbury, Missouri. Real reasonable. They have hundreds of species of native trees, and they're affordable. You know, oak trees, hickories, $15 to $25. Really good stuff. So that'd be my suggestion.
That's great. My magnolia tree has scale. Any treatments you suggest?
Yeah, there's a magnolia scale that can affect them. I don't know if this is a large tree. The best thing to do would be to just kind of go and rub them off, kind of. And then dormant oil usually works good. That's pretty safe. As far as insecticide, I'm not in the tree spraying business, so I don't know. I know there's ones out there. You'll want to make sure it's listed. Probably something like Bear tree and shrub insecticide at Walmart. You can, if it's not too big of a tree, you put that around the trunk of the tree, soak it, and that it's systemic, so it goes through the tree. That would probably take care of it. But I usually go for least toxic thing first, and that'd be getting an ornery child or spouse out there to get that scale off, and then maybe spray it with dormant oil, which would suffocate the eggs, the crawlers.
Okay, great. How long can an oak tree survive chlorosis?
Oh.
Seems like the lower branches keep dying, otherwise okay.
Yeah, many of us have probably seen that oak tree that you could read by at night, and it's a slow death. It's the long goodbye. So there's varying degrees of chlorosis. Some trees have it just on one side, some the whole tree. I think there's a genetic makeup that makes some more susceptible to others. Those tend to go faster. But if you're seeing the lower limbs start to go, and if they're bigger than 1 or 2 inch and they're going, there's not much you can do. I haven't had the best success treating them. You can put iron injections in them or spray them, foliar. But in a year or two, you're going to be right back to where you were. It starts with the soil. So it's lacking the pH that allows the iron to be released into the tree. So again, people never call me with good things.
Yeah,
like, hey,
really.
my tree's
Yeah, that's
great.
right.
Hey, that's awesome. It's
Yeah,
like,
come look at my great
you
tree.
might want to
Yeah.
consider removal. I mean, it's just going to slowly die back. So.
Okay, thanks. This one's a long one, and I'm not sure I can read it all, so whoever the asker is, feel free to help me with this one. But I better get over to the microphone again. After the derecho, Cedar Rapids had a lot of trees turned into urban lumber, which is now sold at Habitat for Humanity in Iowa City. Has the university considered why this same approach could not be used for its down trees?
Yeah, that's great. I just found out about this actually on Friday. I had a meeting with Tyler Baird, the city forester here in town.
We've had him here.
And he was, you had him here?
Yeah, well, he spoke to our group too.
Oh, how was he?
Good.
How good?
Not as good as you.
Oh, that's what I wanted to hear. See that, Tyler? Where's the camera?
Yeah, it's-
He's great. No, he just told me about a program. There's a U.S. Forest Service grant about utilizing urban lumber and waste wood, and I'm going to look into that. So, yeah, I'm a little bit familiar with it. This has been going on since the emerald ash borer really brought to the forefront, starting in the mid-2000s. And I see so much neat stuff being made and being used for a higher purpose. We need to be doing this, so, yeah, I'm investigating. It's always in the back
Okay.
burner.
Yeah, it would seem like for the, it seems like there's such a demand for reclaimed wood
Yeah.
that you would think that, but I understand what, a lot of times they're afraid of what might be.
Metal.
Yeah, the metal in there.
In the old days with this, the old time sawmills, you had this big blade, and if you hit a piece of metal horseshoe or something,
Just
it'd be like
destroyed.
thousands of dollars to replace
Yeah.
that. With these new portable saw misers, the blades are much more $100 or less, so if you hit something, it's not that
Yeah.
big of a deal. And some of that wood, you think about some of these trees, they're 100 years old, they're really good. I mean, quality-wise.
Yeah, I think they'd be worth a few blades. Know,
Yeah,
I mean,
I think so too, but
would
I don't
seem
have a
like it.
sawmill either,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, that's your next job there. Okay, well, I think that's it for the questions. So, do you have another one?
London plane tree, do we have any on campus? And I think in the past you said they have problems.
They do have problems.
Can you repeat the question to the
Oh,
mic for the
yes,
people
I'm
at home?
sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, Doug asked if we have any London plane trees on campus. They're a hybrid sycamore is what they are. It's the American sycamore crossed with the Asian variety. We do have some variety. I planted on the west end of Market Street, going down the hill. Those are all exclamation, the cultivar exclamation London plane trees. Those are the last ones I'm trying. If they don't perform, I'm not going to plant them anymore. We seem to have problems with canker with them. There were several north of the library, between library and the Becker building, and they all have these huge cankers, creating cracks. The trees were falling. They're not performing well, at least for us on campus. These exclamations are growing pretty fast now and look good, but we'll see in another 10 years or so. Yep. They're kind of a darling in the nursery industry, but yeah, we've all heard that before. So were calorie pear.
For the Bradford pear?
Yeah.
Those. Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Andy, did you say that price that you said in Missouri, was it that?
Yes, the question was, what was the nursery in Missouri that I mentioned? It's Forest Keeling with 2 R's in Ellsbury, Missouri.
I remember talking the last one.
Oh,
Ellsbury, Missouri.
yep,
Thank you.
yes.
You said UI Surplus sells some of their wood, piles of wood.
Yeah.
So how do you find out about that? Do they have a website or?
It's, yes, the question was, how does he get the piles of wood? And I will send you I will send you when we're putting them on. No, if you check gov.deals, or is it gov.deals, they have all the surplus stuff on there, whether it's trucks or computers or office chairs, and every once in a while we put wood on, usually every 3 or 4 months, maybe 6 months, so.
Okay. Well, thank you very much
Oh,
again,
yeah,
Andy.
no, thank you all.